on LBC.
This is such a disappointing text from the sort of anti-international aid brigade, the sort of antithesis of a person to Lisa, who rang up to say that she's taken in an Iranian refugee and went out to Greece herself, sleeping with 3,000 men. Not like that. I didn't mean it quite like that. It wasn't supposed to come out quite like that. And nor do I mean to trivialise what Lisa did. She went out to help refugees in Greece, and she took one into her own home, losing some friends along the way. Some people called her a terrorist sympathiser. And here we go. Here's the anti-international brigade type, aid brigade type. Ian says on text, "Good morning, Matt. Don't accuse me of not giving you the airtime, Ian, because here it goes. Which of any of the fundamentally rotten core countries come to our aid? Could they not help our poor, homeless, rough sleepers, socially disadvantaged, etc.? I mean, when you say that, the premise behind your text is somehow that the innocent people of Idlib, millions of them, 2 or 3 million of them, that they are somehow rotten themselves and deserve to be destroyed and wiped from this earth, potentially. Anyway, goes on, Ian, our friend says, or is it always a one-way ticket? Fancy another Libya any time soon? Leave them all with it and let them rot in their rottenness. Nice. Let those Syrian children, let those Rohingya refugees, let them all, let those Yemenis rot. What, because they don't look like you and they don't look like me, Ian, maybe? Leave them all with it and let them rot in their rottenness. It's life and it's tough. Ask any bird or animal. Right, well, if you're on the level of the animals, Ian, good for you, my friend. It's life, it's tough, he says. If you give these countries money, it goes on, and guns and whiskey. Have a conversation, yes, and leave it there. Charity begins at home, does it not? Interesting, Ian, would you like to call up and tell us exactly how charitable you've been this year? Have you put someone in your house? Have you offered to take in someone from Grenfell Tower? Have you offered to take in an Iranian refugee? Have you done any of those things? Come on, man. Man up, my friend, and call up 0345 6060 973. Let's go to Abbas in Redbridge, as I promised we would. Abbas, is your phone sorted now?
I hope so. I don't know if that's clearer or not.
Much better. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, the whole point of setting up the United Nations was that we would stop the genocide from happening again that we saw in Germany with the Jews. But since then, obviously, the United Nations has just become, in my view, just a toothless, castrated tiger. They have no real force or
being a bit generous to it by calling it a tiger in the first place.
Well, I think you're probably right, to be honest. And I think it's quite disgraceful that 165 or 68 countries, I believe that I remember, can vote one way, and then just a handful, 4 or 5 countries in the world, one of those countries can vote the other way. And the thing is quashed. That's not democratic. That's not the world view. That's just the view of one country. And the problem that you have with that is that, powerful dictators or, rogue states out there only have to friendly up with one country in the world out of the 5, and they know that they'll never be held to account.
So, for example, Abbas, and while I respond to you, please keep trying to work on that telephone of yours. Myanmar is in the backyard of China, and China does not seem to be remotely interested in the Myanmar military being held to account and investigated for claims of genocide. Myanmar itself has rejected, unsurprisingly, a UN report which has called for top Burmese military figures to be investigated for genocide against the Rohingya Muslim minority. The government spokesman Zor Hatay said that the country didn't agree with or accept any resolutions made by the Human Rights Council. China had earlier also decried the UN report, saying putting pressure on Myanmar was not helpful. I mean, for goodness sake, are we supposed to believe Zor Hatay when he says that Myanmar has zero tolerance for human rights violations? It's an absolute mess, international affairs, and it's not made any better by the fact that Donald Trump is now in the White House. Thousands of people, Abbas, have died, and more than 700,000 Rohingya have fled to neighbouring Bangladesh. There have also been, as we know, widespread allegations of human rights abuses, including arbitrary killing, rape and burning of land over many years. But the truth is, the reality is, we just live in a lawless world, don't we, Abbas?
I think we do, and I think that your previous text, I think, just pretty much sums it up. How some people out there do feel and believe, and he's not probably a senior politician or whatever. One would hope he's not, but that's how I think that. Quietly,
let's hope it's not Theresa May in disguise.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are leaders around the world who might not quite put it as bluntly and as venomously, as viciously as that person did, but they will probably feel the same thing. They just don't care. As long as the strategic importance or the financial importance is given the president, they don't really care about the people, about human life. And I think when people say we should look after our own, they need to just wake up a little bit and realise that the government here collects more taxes from us than they have ever collected in the history of this country. And so there is enough money. It's the mismanagement of those funds and where those funds go is what we should be questioning, and stop looking at the minuscule 6% or 0.5% or whatever it is that we give in charity, and even that
0.7%. Yeah.
And then 0.7% comes with caveats where we would often be, or British companies would be servicing, those particular funds, whether it's giving, aid that's things that are made in this country or labour or whatever it might be. So often, these things come with caveats. They're a benefit to us often in the long run. It's not just pure charity given out of goodwill with nothing coming back.
Abbas, let me ask you this before I let you go. Others, I think, want to jump in on it. And after the news, we're going to be talking about the fact that the United States, under Trump's government, are cutting aid to a UN group which was set up for largely for Palestinian refugees, back then Jewish refugees as well, but that was no longer seen as necessary because Israel then took care of them, as I understand it. And Palestinian officials condemning this decision by Trump's administration to end all funding to the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency. It's been the largest donor, as we know, to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, but now says the organisation is irredeemably flawed. Have you got any sympathy for Trump and the State Department?
Well, look, this is just a long line of, America and its sort of a relationship with Israel, and the Israeli government clearly know that if America is on their side, and America has been on their side because it's vetoed, dozens upon dozens of sanctions that would have been taken out against Israel had America not vetoed them. And America blatantly goes against the world opinion about how to deal with the Palestinians and how to hold the Israelis to account. And so it's not a surprise to me at all.
All right, Abba, stay there, because if you would, I've got Ian up now on the line from Morecambe in Lancashire, whose tweet I gave very short shrift to a moment ago. I think Abbas will be back in just a moment. Ian in Morecambe in Lancashire. Very good morning to you, Ian. I was
good morning to you, sir.
I was pretty tough on you, wasn't I, in your text? A little bit mocking.
I wanted you to be tough because I wanted to be thought provoking.
Okay. Well, now is your chance to respond to me.
Yes. Initially, I actually do believe, and I always have believed, that charity does begin at home, and in a country like we've got today, that's with the disparity of wealth we've got and the amount of people, or the increasing amount of people that are sleeping both homeless and rough, and people who are socially disadvantaged with not many chances in life, and disabled people. And we do have quite a criteria there in order to look after the people we've got. And in an ageing population where dementia is going to be a bigger problem, we're going to have to throw some considerable force and weight of money as well behind all those things, just in order for us to keep our head above water. And yet it seems every time we go into foreign countries, especially when it's done on an international basis, we get ourselves into trouble. You'll need to look at Libya, Iraq, Syria. It's a complete mess. And look at the nice man who did actually spare a lot of his good time that way. Was he a taxi driver? And he ended up over there getting his head chopped off, just trying to help people that are living.
But he got his head chopped off. He got his head chopped off by sick terrorists. Hang on, Ian. You're far more articulate than I expected you to be, I have to say.
Oh, yes, I am quite articulate. You better mind yourself, sir.
I am minding myself. I'm being very careful indeed. In fact, I'm going to ask Abbas if he wants to come to my rescue again. Abbas, join in if you would. Respond to Ian.
Look, firstly, the amount of tax that the government, as I've mentioned, collects off the British people is a record amount, more than it's ever collected before. if you look at some of these deals that happened with Crossrail and HS2 and...
Let's not get into too much detail, Abbas. We don't have the time. What's your response to Ian? Ian is saying that charity begins at home. What's your reaction?
My point is that even if the 0.7% we weren't to give to charity, you would still have homeless on the street. You would still have old age pensioners dying in their homes because of a lack of funds, because they can't afford the heating. Those things won't go away just because you stop the 0.7% aid that goes out. And the reality is we, as a global society, as a global country, have benefited greatly from our occupation of 300 years of India and so many other countries around the world. We've enriched ourselves off the resources of many of these countries. So morally, we have a duty, quite frankly, to give a minuscule amount of that back to these countries to support.
Abbas, thank you. Ian, you have the final word. Why don't you?
Well, no, it's not a minuscule amount. It's about £14 billion, of which I'm not quite sure how many.
13-ish, yeah.
And I don't buy his colonial guilt past either. I don't work with that. And he says that people in our country will still be penniless and all the rest of it. Yes, but they'd be less penniless, wouldn't they? And that would be a good help, wouldn't it? And finally, before I go, you said, what am I doing for charity? Well, I'm helping the homeless on Christmas Day.
Ian, I love that, and I fully applaud you for that, and I think you're a good man for having done that. All I would say, and I'm afraid I agree with Abbas on this, we can do both. We can help the homeless on Christmas Day, and we can also take refugees in, as Lisa did earlier on. And the thing about you, Ian, is that you are someone who obviously does care and does do your bit. But why not, at the same time as doing your bit, accept there are other bits to be done and other people who can do those bits? And also that we as a country must hold our head up high and say we can't just be inward looking. We have to be bigger and better than that. We can do more for our own, but we can also do more and continue to do something for others. And I call on everyone listening this morning, we have to raise our voices before it is too late for the people of Idlib. Millions of them. We've got to do it. It's our moral responsibility as human beings. 0345 6060 973.